Welcome to Talking Point Live. It's March 7th, and we're coming to you live from the Dixie State University campus. I'm Jennifer Kohler.
And I'm Eric Young. We're joining you from the studios of the communication. Let's try that again.
Okay.
I'm Eric Young, and we're joining you from the studios of the the whole show is going to go this way, I'm afraid. The Community Education Channel, we can stick it out there. So I need to ask you a favor.
Sure.
Because I've been watching the last couple of shows, and
Okay.
I have this verbal go-to. And I'll say, so in terms of, and I must have said that at least a dozen times.
Oh, I hate it. I hate it
show.
when you do that.
So, okay, so stop me.
No.
And I'm going to try to bifurcate, there's a term for my public speaking students, a little bit more to listen to what it is that I'm saying.
Right.
So I don't say, so in
Right.
terms of, because it drives me crazy too.
Well, I know the feeling when I watch later and I found myself saying, okay, like 15 times
It's
in a
crazy.
row, yeah. We do these things naturally and by habit.
Right.
Yes.
I go through and review the show to see, just, to pick up on things like that, to
Right.
maybe improve
Right.
content and delivery and scope.
It's
and
all about
depth
learning
and things that
and
it is. It's all about
making
learning.
things as good as we can make them.
One thing we don't do here, probably enough, is to go through and declare that the views and opinions expressed on Talking Point Live do not represent those of Dixie State University.
Yes, let's be clear about that.
The Communication Department,
Yes.
the Media Studies Department, of the Community Education Channel, of anybody other than myself and
mine, yes.
Jennifer Kohler.
Yeah,
So
and I'm subject to changing my mind when I get new information. So
you're subject
I
to changing your mind during the show.
Well, sometimes you're very persuasive.
Well, that's-
you teach persuasive, communication. Sometimes.
Yeah, but I don't know that it's me. I think you go through and you hear yourself and you go, oh, wait a minute, maybe now that I've articulated my thoughts on this, I'm able to make a better decision in terms of where my opinion lands or how I feel about that, so I'm going to go through and change. I do
Yeah.
the same thing. I've changed to one or two opinions.
Right. We could never
Like
run
this
for
here.
office. We would be major
We'd be
flip-floppers.
flip-floppers.
Yes, we would.
There, as if there was something wrong. with
Another
that.
reason we could never run for office. Okay. Can we just launch into what's on my mind?
Is this your segue?
It is.
Before
It
you
is.
go there, I have one more
Okay.
thing to talk about.
All right.
And I do this with a little bit of hesitation. I know that there are viewers out there who are wishing that we would address the current situations that are happening on campus here at Dixie State University. And there's part of me, from a journalistic standpoint, that really wants to embrace that and get into the story. But I'm an employee of this institution, and there are certain aspects of my employment that I cherish and value. There are certain aspects of this institution that I also cherish and value, and I believe many of those are at risk currently. But this is not programmed for us to go through and do any type of investigation that way, or commentary, or put in an opinion in that respect, as much as I'd like to. If you want to know what I think, come by my office, or let's go out and grab a bite to eat or something. It's probably better to do it there instead of in my office. But I don't want to come off as unknowing or uncaring. I value my colleagues here on campus, all of them. And when things happen that raise eyebrows and have a tendency to maybe go through and be demoralizing in certain aspects, we need to talk about it. But Talking Point isn't the forum for that to happen.
Okay. I appreciate you saying that.
All right.
Okay. So what happened for me the other day was, and why this is on my mind, is in my voice and civility, no, actually in my interpersonal class, we are studying effective verbal communication, and we did a little quiz on deception acceptance. So the students answered questions about when it's appropriate to lie, to tell little white lies, or to deceive somebody in order not to hurt their feelings, or if they don't know, it can't hurt them, that kind of attitude. So I discovered that there was quite a range in my class for deception acceptance. Some people will accept a lot of deception in their lives, and other people very little. But there's a continuum. And some of the justifications they gave were their parents have expectations, and they're just managing people, they're handling people, and they want to be free to be themselves without the hassle of dealing with expectations, etc. So that was disturbing for me, that people are willing to be disingenuous and inauthentic in their lives and in their relationships. Then I heard an excerpt, and we're gonna, in just a second, we're gonna play a brief clip of Ivanka Trump when she's being interviewed by NBC at the Olympics on various topics. And the interviewer asks her about whether or not she finds her father credible when it comes to these sexual misconduct or events, accusations in his life. So if we can bring that up, do we have that ready to play that short clip?
Accusations of sexual misconduct against President Trump, allegations he's repeatedly denied. Do you believe your father's accusers?
I think it's a pretty inappropriate question to ask a daughter if she believes the accusers of her father when he's affirmatively stated that there's no truth to it. I don't think that's a question you would ask many other daughters. I believe my father. I know my father. So I think I have that right as a daughter to believe my father.
These tax cuts are for
Ms. Trump
American
proudly
workers,
touts her role successfully advocating for the
Idea, if you haven't already seen it, of the exchange between the interviewer and Ivanka Trump. And so, Eric, what's your reaction watching her body language, for example, or listening to that or viewing that?
It's a pretty dense reaction that that I'm having to her response with that. She certainly has that right to go through and say, and ethically, I think she's probably right. However,
what's she right about?
She's right about, I don't know that you have the right to ask me to go through and testify against my father.
See, and I disagree. I disagree with that.
Okay.
In this context.
Pin that, and we'll come back to that.
Okay, because...
Well, hold on.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
The reason being is, well, that I said that she has that right. However, and this is where we might come to some common ground on it, she also is thrust into that public limelight as well as a public servant in her relationship to Jared Kushner. And you know, within the last 24 hours, the story has changed dramatically as well, because the woman who had the gag order on her has come forward now, is now in the national press in terms of wanting to break away from that gag order and to be able to go through and actually sue Donald Trump there. So that's shifted as well. So what you're trying to get at is, does Ivanka have the ability to reframe the truth within the situation, or to abstain from validating that truth based on her relationship to the president?
Mm-hmm. And I would say that for a private citizen and your average daughter and father relationship, I would agree with her that it would be inappropriate to ask her to weigh in on it. But because, and you say she's been thrust into, I would say
no, she hasn't. She's stepped into it.
Jumped into,
right,
and wholeheartedly, and maybe for very good reasons. Okay, but she has put herself in a governmental position, in a leadership position in the administration, and because her father is the president, and because he can be blackmailed and manipulated by many of these accusations, it matters on his ability to perform effectively as the president. So, because he's the president and she has an official capacity in the administration and official duties as spokesperson, I think it's not inappropriate to ask her that question at all. And so I think she was deflecting it and not wanting to answer it. First of all, I mean, so I think, and then she asserts, as you mentioned, her right to believe her father. And that's where, again, I come back to this deception acceptance issue that my students surprised me a little bit. This idea that we are willing as human beings to accept a certain amount of untruth, deception, lies in our lives. And why do we do that, and what is the payoff for doing it, and what's the cost?
Okay, before we go down that hole though,
right.
Okay, let's go back to the framing of this message in terms of how she responded to this. Because as I looked at it 3 or 4 times, and when she gets into the second part of her message where she pulls the daughter card, so to speak, that's not even her. That's not even her rhetoric. She's been coached to go through and say that. And it comes through and it lands on the affective part of the audience, the feelies, the emotions with that. And I think anybody involved, daughter-father kind of relationship is going to go and say, oh, you're damn right, right?
Yes.
It's too constructed. It's not spontaneous enough in her message. And again, this might be kind of conspiratorial on my part, but I examine messages for a living and see what's going on here. So that in and of itself feels disingenuous, which also gets into this concept of deception. And is that level of deception even allowable as well, or how do we feel about that on this moral continuum?
Okay.
Is it okay for that to happen? Is she, I used a term with you before the show, is she an actor in that respect? Like a crisis actor? Like what these young people are being accused of in the movements coming forward against gun violence in schools, kind of a thing?
Well, when you say the word actor, we all, I think, have an understanding that politics is a certain amount of theater anyway, and we are actors.
You said that before, and
Yes.
I just want to, I just threw up a little bit in the back of my...
you just...
Yeah, and you're right. Yes, absolutely. There's no, when we look at the art of persuasion and rhetoric, yes, there is that pathos aspect to that, but I have to resist calling it theater just for the sheer integrity or what's left of it.
It's too cynical.
It's too. That's hard for me to say. Being a cynic.
Okay, and here's the thing. It's hard for you to use the word theater. You resist the truth.
But it's
resist the truth of theater
it is.
because it's disheartening to you and discouraging to you.
Who was
and
it that came
upsetting.
in to argue against global warming with a snowball? You know that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but the name escapes me. But that, yes, it exists.
Or
it's
at
true.
the Trump
I don't
interview with
want
all
it
of
to exist.
all the binders.
Right.
The empty binders
all
with
the blank pages, the
documents,
stacks
or when they passed the Obamacare
Yeah.
with the giant stack
See,
of the bill.
I don't want to call
Yes.
that theater because I have a respect for theater. I want to call that the circus.
Okay. And there again, see, this is a human tendency to take something and reframe it in a slightly more palatable form. So
It still makes me want to throw up.
What
a
is
little
it
bit.
about us as humans that we just go there like instantly?
Right. So I've taken you
yeah.
way away from
No.
really what we want to get into here. For me, because I wanted to be more accurately representative of what is really going on, instead of having mainstream media go through and normalize this incredibly aberrant behavior to a point where we go through and say, oh yeah, well, oh, yeah, she's his daughter, and she has a right to whatever. No, they've totally obfuscated the point that there is evidence being brought forward against her dad, against the President of the United States, in terms of his infidelity, of his philandering, of his
Paying off people
Right.
to be quiet. Yes, a system.
Why
and that
are we
harkens.
still enduring this?
Okay, and so that is at the heart of my dilemma. And then we have another little clip I wanted to play, again along this line of why do we resist the truth? So this happened when Mona Charen, who's a conservative political columnist, she was attending the most recent CPAC, and she was invited to be on a 4-person panel of women talking about women leaders, et cetera, et cetera. And the thing that's so ironic about it is Matt Schlepel is the current CEO of the CPAC organizing
I'm
effort.
disappointed in people on our
And before
side.
the CPAC started, he was saying, CPAC is a really great institution. It's where we get together and we have civic public discourse on the important issues we tackle. We ask questions, we tease out the truth, we debate, right? And that's what CPAC's about. And then you see this 4-woman panel, and you see Mona express an opposing or an unpopular point of view. So we'll watch it for a couple of minutes, and then we'll come back and talk about the impact that had on me and maybe on the rest of us.
I'm disappointed in people on our side
Okay.
for being hypocrites about sexual harassers and abusers of women who are in our party, who are sitting in the White House, who brag about their extramarital affairs, who brag about mistreating women. And because he happens to have an R after his name, we look the other way, we don't complain. This is a party that was ready to endorse, the Republican Party endorsed Roy Moore for the Senate in the state of Alabama, even though he was a credibly accused child molester. You cannot claim that you stand for women and put up with that.
Well, you know, this is a really interesting point, because there's been this, and there are many, but there's been this explosion of sexual harassment scandals, and in many cases, accusation has been equal to conviction, right? Many people get accused, and that's all anyone needs. I worry, honestly, I worry about the young men as well as the young women, because they have no idea what to do. So, that's right. You can.
Actually,
the good guys, right?
Speaking of bad guys, there was quite an interesting person. Quite an interesting person who was on this stage the other day. Her name is Marine Le Pen. Now, why was she here? Why was she here? She's a young, no longer in office politician from France. I think the only reason she was here is because she's named Le Pen. And the Le Pen name is a disgrace. Her grandfather is a racist and a Nazi. She claims that she stands for him. And the fact that CPAC invited her is a disgrace.
Well.
All right. So Mona's not mincing.
Speaking truth to CPAC, huh?
Right. She's not mincing her words. And the part that's not evident from this clip is that as soon as she got off stage, the security detail surrounded her, asked her, how was she planning on leaving? Did she need an escort off, and then where was her purse? They had to go fetch her purse from the green room and her coat. They had to whisk her off out of the building safely into a car.
So I'm going to play you for a minute here. Where did you get that information?
Oh, dear, you're asking me where? Okay, she was giving an interview, I believe, to the New York Times Daily Show, and she was describing her experience at CPAC and then when she was taken off stage.
Was it the Daily Show or the New York Times, both?
Well, the Daily's NPR, and then Well, no, the Daily Show is up first is NPR.
Okay,
so it was the
right.
Daily Show. It was probably her interview on the Daily Show with the New York Times.
Okay.
Because that's a New York Times product,
Gotcha.
right?
Okay. All right.
Right. And so, I listen to so much media that I get a little.
And I don't mean to antagonize you.
No. I like that you're asking about
saying,
the source.
But part of our show is going through and saying we're vetting our sources, and this is where we're getting our information from. So, okay.
Yes.
So
no, that's totally fine.
I've sidetracked you. Let's go back to the point.
I'm glad you jumped in, and so I think that's important that they were concerned for her safety. So then, what happened later on is in the interview, she also said then she got follow-up emails and thumbs up from people saying, thank you for speaking up and expressing your point of view. So I guess for me is I'm feeling a certain amount of dilemma here, because I want to embrace the truth. I want to live a life based on embracing the truth. But I have to question myself, how much truth do I want? What am I willing to do? What am I willing to give up in my comfort zone and in the way my life works based on my assumptions and beliefs? And then where is my party? Where's my political party? Because I cannot align myself with a party that I want to align with that is willing to be hypocritical and is willing to shut down the truth and is willing to take an extreme point of view. Who's that congressman from Florida that's not running again? He said, you just can't speak the truth and get elected.
Was it, you talking about Jeff Flake from Arizona?
No, from Florida now. He's not running again. And he said, if I speak out against the NRA, they will start, They will start an email campaign, a print campaign, a brochure campaign against me, and I will not be able to run for office. So I don't like it when the truth is squelched and people feel censored and they're trying to make a contribution and they're trying to solve problems in our society, but they are hamstrung by these rigid and narrow discourse. I'm frustrated about it, and I feel a certain amount of dismay.
Your exercise that you did with your students here in terms of deception, was this the first time you've done that?
In my class, in this semester, yes.
In this semester,
yes.
It was, but you've done it before, and
yes.
The results are different? Or is
no,
that a
they're pretty
departure for you?
consistent. There's a continuum.
So would you remind me and for our audience what was most disconcerting to you about that?
The fact that they feel it's appropriate to lie in certain and deceive in certain situations.
So that's disconcerting to you on a moral basis?
I guess moral and / philosophical, because then I say to myself, well, because really if we're willing as people to accept a certain amount of deception, then that spills over not only in our personal lives, but in our society, and then in our society into our governance. So that's where it gets really, really scary to me.
Okay. And yeah, it is frightening to go through and say, well...
I wish to be lied to. If it upsets me, or if I have to make a change, or if my system is going to be...
You wish not to be lied to.
Well, I'm saying that that's what people are saying when they say, I accept deception. They're saying, I accept being lied to.
Okay, and good. I'm glad you're pointing out that there's two sides to the lie, or to being deceived here.
And I accept that it's okay to lie back. I mean, that's what they're saying.
Oh, that's not what you're saying.
Right.
Okay, just want to make sure that
Right.
because somebody's going to go through and edit this and then put that out on YouTube saying all kinds of things about
course.
you. I don't encourage you to go through and do that. So the point that I want to get to here, let's see if I can follow those breadcrumbs on back. So I teach a class on lying and deception. And one of the first things that...
how to be good at it?
How to be critical of it.
Okay.
How to understand it.
Okay.
And I take approach in how to pull it away from that moral continuum. Because like it or not, deceiving is natural. And I don't mean to justify it in that respect.
Because we're not talking about the moral aspect now.
Right, we're trying to get away from, I mean, if it were not for deception, we wouldn't be here.
Wow, okay. You mean conception or deception?
Deception. Well, a stronger argument could be made for conception, certainly that way, but if we're not for deception, we've advanced as a species, as a society, because of deception. We did that by telling other people that fresh water was over there instead of over there where it really was.
Like Iceland and Greenland a little.
Okay, all right, yeah, we can go there. It's been a survival tactic for us. There was a study done on this a number of years ago on both deception and gossip. And taking it back anthropologically to that these things were used as defense mechanisms to discredit one's character, to not believe in them, so we might have a new leader emerge to go through and lead the migration of our population to someplace else. This is nothing, A, this is nothing new, and B, we all do it. We all deceive on some level.
That's where I'm struggling a little bit. Like, well, I can see it in my own life.
The trick is, do we have the critical ability to go through and say, oh, well, that's a lie?
So you're saying there's the fact that it happens, and then there's the skills for detecting it when it is happening, so that you are aware. Okay, the main thing is you need to be aware when it's happening, either when you're doing it or someone else is doing it. If you're aware, then you have some choice around it. So that's what your class is about, is how to spot lying and deception.
Yes, it is.
And why do we separate lying from deception? Are they not the same thing?
Well, you've kind of intimated that there are levels of lying, that there's the white lie kind of thing.
And is that really true?
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
a lie is a lie is a lie, is it not?
Well, I would say yes, but I would wager that at some point you have not told the truth to your kids to protect them.
I did lie about Santa Claus, and it's still a game we play.
So it's a white lie,
Right.
but it's still a lie, is what you're saying.
It's still a lie.
But non-verbally, you're still kind of resisting the.
It is. There's no such thing as the guy at the North Pole. I hope your children are watching if they're underage.
We just ruined it all for, because all
In
of the
my
children are watching
opinion,
the show.
I've never seen the guy at the North Pole. I'm pretty sure he's not there. I haven't actually been to the North Pole to verify this for myself, but yes.
So for the guys that, for everybody in the control room, we're probably going to take this to an hour because I'm not even near my content yet. We still have a long ways to go here. So we'll probably go to 10:30 there as we go along. All right? Is that all right with you?
That's fine with
Okay.
me. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, so anyway.
I almost said guys in the control room, Lauren, so I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go through and
She's definitely
overlook
not a guy.
gender in that respect. So I'm not trying to get away from the monogender type of
Okay, great.
talk, that kind of thing.
Great. You have that inclusion writer thing going
I have
on.
an inclusion writer going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so we were talking about then spotting deception and the fact that it's a necessary survival tool. And I think that's where my students were going with this thing in their parents, is that, it's hard to be a child when your parent has expectations of you in life. So the best thing is just to manage them or handle them to a certain degree and tell them what they want to hear and then rid yourself. It's a survival mechanism is what I think to a certain degree. And then also in relationships with people, et cetera, et cetera. But is it just the amount of it? I mean, I don't really know what to do with it now that it's so front and center.
Well, the context of what we're talking about here that you start off with the show is political in dealing with then what have we come to expect. And I had indicated that lying has become normalized within this political scope. And again, this isn't anything new either. You go back administration by administration.
Well, the thing with Bill Clinton, the thing is, if he just would have come clean, it would have been over so much faster. But no, he insisted on lying about it. And that is so aggravating.
Well, okay, so that might be a good way to go through and define the difference between lying and deception, because deception is produced. And it's done to engage more than one channel. It's done visually, it's done auditorially, it's set up to go through and purposefully deceive the receiver of the message. And that's what Clinton did, really, by redefining
Yes.
the verb is, by putting out this display of contrition where in fact, that was not the case. It was contrived coming around. And I'm articulating this and thinking about it at the same time, okay? The liar is more spontaneous. It's less produced. It's something that happens because they are afraid of losing face or being found out or being uncovered, or something to go through and protect somebody. It's something to go through and maybe separate out a situation and parse it in ways that can be better understood.
So you're saying then that deception is a lie that's amplified, constructed, and produced, and more orchestrated.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
I would have to say.
So it's a big
yes,
lie.
Yes.
Deception's a big lie. It's a manufactured, produced, crafted lie.
It is.
Okay.
But it's also done, so we have different types of, not only do we have different levels of lying, we have different types of liars out there as well. In the narcissist, the psychopathic liar is the best at this. And so if I were a narcissist and I was really good at lying, I have moved up that lying echelon into deception. Then I'm a master deceiver in that respect. if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Because as a narcissist, I am, so here are Hare's, Robert D. Hare's PCLR, the top 12. I won't get to all 12 of them, but indications that you might be a narcissist. One is that you have this charisma, this credibility, this charm that people immediately buy into. We all know somebody this way. We like them right off the bat. They convert us to them because they're funny or they're intelligent and they're good looking. And we're there.
They have
with them.
charisma.
Right. Okay. However, they have a detached conscience. They don't feel bad about lying. And that's one of the reasons why they're good at lying, is because they don't have that conscience that goes through and says, you're going to regret that later on, right? Men are, how do I say this? Men are, sorry guys, better liars than women are.
Because they have more practice? What?
No, because, well, I've come across some really good female liars, so at the same time that might go through, but generally speaking, men are compartmentalized and stick with issues where women are more relational. And within that relational aspect of their character, it bothers them. There's a conscience tied to that relational aspect, and so when they lie non-verbally, they're more betrayed with the truth in terms of what their body's saying non-verbally as opposed to what they might be articulating. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
There? Yeah. Have I said in terms yet during the show? I think I've...
Only like
Are we doing okay,
52
Valerie?
times so far, but don't sweat it, okay? It's just you.
But you just lied.
I did, and it came right out.
You just lied to me.
It came right out.
Live, on air, on a
Yes.
right?
So that's really,
I set you up.
I know you did.
Okay.
That's okay. And I stepped right into it.
You did.
Thanks,
But I don't think
buddy.
you're a master deceiver.
No, I'm not too good at it because it takes a lot of mental effort and gymnastics. And I just,
Well, you're not a narcissist either.
Okay. Define that term. Would you just?
Let me go a
wanna
little.
know.
Well, you know what? Let me pull something up for this
Okay.
to read through you. I'm trying
Okay,
to pull it
while
off
you're
the top
looking
of my
for
head.
something, I'll let you look for a minute because
Okay.
when Eric was talking a minute ago about deception being a mass-produced lie, more orchestrated and contrived, kind of a lie on steroids maybe, I was thinking of the current dilemma over the current Russian involvement in our political life here in the United States. And I will say that I think countries have engaged from time immemorial in interfering in one another's internal politics. I think that most countries view that as a legitimate form of self-protection. We think this president's going to be better than the other, is going to like our country, is more trustworthy. So I think this happens forever, and everybody does it. However, I think, as Eric was mentioning earlier, we want to be aware of the phenomenon, how it happens, and then see the consequences of it for ourselves, and not pretend that this is a new thing that Vladimir Putin, ex-KGB spy, has invented, okay, because he didn't invent it, he's just a master at it. But, okay, did you find what you were looking for?
There's a reason why he's a master at it. There's a reason why Donald Trump is a master at it. It's because they are both unabashed narcissists. So Robert D. Hare goes through and gives us a definition of this. And if you like, I'll go through and post the website for this up on our Facebook page. The Hare PCLR scale, it's a scale of narcissism.
How do you spell Hare in this case?
It's like the rabbit, H-A-R-E.
H-A-R-E, okay.
Robert D. Hare.
Okay.
Defines specific characteristics of psychopathy or personality expressions. And let me define, in terms of psychopathy, narcissism has become that psychopathy. It's been defined by the American Psychological Association as a mental condition,
a pathology of sorts.
that should be treated on some level.
Okay.
And it is the most diagnosed psychopathy on the books. now, is this male narcissism. And
Now you're saying male narcissism, is that different than female?
That's a good question. Okay. And I've been looking at that as well. There's certainly female narcissism out there, but what I'm talking about specifically, and what I've researched, is male narcissism here. And that speaks to what we're seeing in the Me Too movement, that speaks to what we're seeing in the alt-right movement. You know, both of these ideas is too positive, both of these conditions are spurned by narcissism, by male narcissism.
Spurned or spawned?
Spawned.
Okay. Spurn would be?
S-P-U-R-N-E-D, spurned?
Spurned is when you reject something.
Oh,
so
okay, all right. So I'm using that
They're
wrong.
spawned.
Thank you for the correction there.
That's okay.
So here are the characteristics then of that psychopathic behavior. Manipulative charm, amorality, parasitic living, remorselessness, feigning or faking emotion, the incapacity to empathize, promiscuity, entitlement, inability to sustain relationships, no goal orientation, and of course, lying.
Okay. Now, actually, and you know, bear in mind, I'm always saying this in the classroom, just because we're talking about a specific person in a specific situation doesn't mean that you won't see this apply to areas of your personal life or in other cases. So specific, but then also universal. So maybe many of us have these own tendencies, or we live with someone, or we love someone, or care someone, or related, or work with someone who also fits this description.
Absolutely.
So just because you're talking about the current president of the United States right this minute doesn't mean that this doesn't apply possibly to other areas of our lives.
Okay. Well, I guess I could make that relationship to Donald Trump. Certainly.
Oh, I thought you led into it that way.
That might be how I framed it, but
okay.
I don't think it's.
Because you did say he was a narcissist, and
yes.
Vladimir Putin
yes,
also.
Absolutely.
That's where I got that.
Yeah, that's not where this post comes from.
Right.
And in fact, I asked students to respond to this, and most of their response. So I ended this with, "Does that sound familiar? Does this remind you of anybody?" And what was interesting is most of the posts that I got from them were examples of fictional characters from episodic television and not real life individuals.
Oh dear.
And I was
Really?
fascinated by that. Wow.
That's their baseline for reality.
The number one there was Dexter. No surprise.
Oh boy.
There.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I wanted to get into a little bit about how you define truth then.
Oh. All right. The capital T one.
The
I'm
capital
assuming.
T truth. Well, let's talk about that for a second. Capital T and
Okay.
small t truths.
Okay.
There, and what does that mean to you? By the way, and I probably should say at the top of the hour, you're watching the Community Education Channel. We're coming to you, this is Talking Point Live, coming to you live from the campus at Dixie State University. I realize that we're not beholden to FCC rules. It's just an old habit to get into.
I like that.
to go
You
through
do
and
that. It makes me feel official.
Kind of an official recognition of what it is that we're doing. My name is Eric Young, and this is
Jennifer Kohler.
And we're talking about the truth. What does that mean, and especially in context of what is going on with our current administration? And I probably should say our current administration of the United States.
Okay. Yes, we are. And our own personal, our culpability, if you will, or our acceptance of a certain level of deception in our lives. Maybe, Eric said, it's a survival technique that's as old as human beings.
It is a defense mechanism. Lying, like gossip, is a defense mechanism. And as much as we like to malign it and say, well, if you lie, then you don't have good character, you've lost your integrity.
See, I know marriages that dissolved over deception.
Sure.
And it doesn't even maybe have to be. Some people have very low tolerance for deception. If there's deception, they're out the door. And then other people have much higher. And then I'm always taking it to our society and our political structure, too, when that's where I'm going with it.
Okay, well, there's so many ways I want to go with that.
Okay.
And I'm hoping we have the time to be able to go through and do that. We come to a lie with our bags already packed. We have, if we like somebody, if we have a good relationship with them, they are ultimately more empowered to go through and lie to us. And we'll go through and believe them just based on that latent credibility that we have with that individual. So when we have a leader come along who is charismatic, and I'm not talking about Donald Trump, I'll go back to Barack Obama. With his charisma, with his ability to go through and endear his base, when he lied, and he did, he was able to go through and get heads nodding. And then once he was called out on the lie, and we saw his contrition in terms of...
Are you thinking of a specific case?
Yeah, it was a press conference that he had in San Diego when he was talking about the FISA Act, and he's going through and indicating that the act itself and that the NSA really was just engaged in gathering metadata in terms of the kind of Fourth Amendment infractions that the NSA was doing with American citizens. And he went through and said, well, the only kind of data that they're really getting is metadata. And metadata is like your IP address, the time of day of transmission of the receiver's IP address, but not the content, not what's in that envelope.
The numbers you called and how long you spoke to those numbers.
Right.
How often you spoke to those numbers.
But not the content of that.
Right, not the actual words that were spoken.
He knew while he was giving this press conference that he was lying. And if you are in tune to watch nonverbal indicators of lying, he was a terrible liar because they were all over the place. And he was obviously very uncomfortable in going through it and getting that script out there that was given to him. Let me follow my breadcrumbs back to where I was going with that.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So what we bring to the lie then will go through and either enhance or obfuscate our ability to critically analyze the lie that's going on. Okay? We're lied to on so many different levels. The truth exists basically on 4 different levels. Okay? And let me see if I can put these in a hierarchy for you, with maybe the most effective one being the last one that I talk about. So first one is the scientific method. It's truth through observation.
And that was Plato, right? And
Yes.
Aristotle.
Yep.
They were big believers in the observation.
To go through and watch and see what happens. And is it duplicatable? Is it replicatable? Can you go through and you'll see the similar results along, and it's become the scientific process. Secondly is a truth that we're told.
Okay. All right, we don't see evidence of this truth, but we are informed of it.
Again, that comes back then to the credibility of the person telling us that truth. And we break down that credibility into 3 different areas. It breaks down into their competency. How well spoken are they? What's their vernacular, their use of the language? Second then is their charisma, okay? Do we like them? Are they good looking? Do they factor into somebody that we would just on the spot go through and admire? And guess what? That starts to resonate with, and we come back to Hare's PCLR scale in terms of narcissism, right? Okay, so we have, the last one then is character. So we have competency, charisma, the last one being character. And that is whether or not that individual's character is believable. So you brought up Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton left the White House with the highest approval rating of any president in the history of the United States to this day.
Based on some kind of effective polling and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Based on his good old boy Arkansas character.
Okay.
Once it was discovered, once we got beyond Bill's lie and discovered that he was kind of your hair's doing just kind of this loopy thing.
Fix
there.
it,
Okay.
please.
Is it?
All right.
Okay. Once we got beyond the scandal, that ends up demonizing Monica Lewinsky. All
the young 22-year-old.
It was shifted to her.
Yes,
Once we got beyond that,
yes.
people went, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's the kind of guy he is, and that's the kind of guy he is. Character is a definition of you're the same individual outside of the public eye as you are in the public eye. And people went, that's Bill. And so he comes away with that. So truth being what we're told really gets into what we have surrendered to the teller, what we have given to the individual who is giving us that message.
A certain level of authority and credibility.
Right.
We've assigned them to be credible, so now we can believe.
Right.
So in the first example, evidence-based, we're choosing to believe the evidence that we see and can measure. And the second one, we're choosing to believe the credibility of the source. Okay.
Where that comes from. The third one gets into what you're talking about, and that is reasoning. Okay. If A equals B, B equals C, then we can go through and figure out that A and C. It's logic. It boils down to that. But that requires a little bit more effort on our part. No longer can we just go through and naively or latently just credit the truth to the individual. Now we have to go through and take that message and take it apart and go through and say, okay, let's see if this makes any logic to me. Is there any sense that has to do with that? Okay. The fourth one, and the reason why I'm putting this forth as it's not the most important way to determine truth, but it's probably the most ubiquitous. It's the most popular way, is the truth that you feel.
Okay, more on the level of emotion and pathos.
Exactly, what resonates. Now, remember, pathos is also coming from the truth teller, or whom we think is the truth teller.
We have an emotional reaction.
So at that point we go, we have this, oh, well, that resonates with me. I feel good about that, so I'm going to go through and believe it. And we've had enough snake oil salesmen in our lives to go through and hopefully make us a little bit more critical. Let's go back to the third level of truth.
The logos.
Yeah, before we are so readily defaulting to that warm feeling we have inside.
Well, and along that line, I believe that the emotion in the human brain is centered in the limbic system of the brain.
It is in the limbic system of the brain.
And that's also where decision making is centered.
Unfortunately.
So here's the thing. We aspire through education, a university education, to be competent critical thinkers. We teach logos, which is utilizing the critical thinking method in our classes, and also the evidence-based method. Okay. And also in critical thinking, we evaluate the credibility, that second one of the source.
Okay.
Okay, and then we also in critical thinking, we acknowledge the powerful effect of the fourth one, the pathos.
Okay.
So again, we keep coming back to this critical thinking, how important it is, crucial it is to good decision making in our lives. So then, what happens when we refuse to exercise critical thinking? We just want to go with what makes us feel good or we believe, and then we make decisions in our personal lives and in our society and in our government.
Isn't that
negating the examination of the logos and the evidence? Like going back to Ivanka, she emotionally, and then she made an emotional appeal to the pathos for having the right to believe her father is telling the truth, when in fact the evidence, the first way of knowing the truth, and the logic, the third way you describe, the logos, can't contradict her emotional desire to believe her father. She's like every other human. We believe what we want to believe and what we need to believe, even in the face of contradicting evidence. Right?
Yes, but like I said before, she's also produced.
Right, she's been directed and scripted, and I get that.
The ultimate deception kind of thing that's going on with that. She's also being produced.
Right.
I'm tempted to go back on air here and watch that film again with the volume down and just watch her nonverbals.
The nonverbals.
What's going on with that?
Well, I think if we have time, I think that would be a good idea to just turn the sound on. I know I see a lot more when I either shut out the visuals and listen.
Right.
Or I shut out the audio and watch, because my brain is limited in its capacity to process. So when it can focus, I see things.
Lauren, do you mind running that again?
And this time we'll watch it. It's
go ahead
a short
and keep our
clip.
mics hot, if you would, while I go through and narrate this. And so shoulder shrugging, that's going on there. The direction of her eyes, she comes back up. Shoulder shrugging is a big deal there, and it's hard to see it beyond the banner that's there. We'll come back to her as she continues to go through and defend. She's looking down to the left and back up as she's going through and manufacturing. Her clasping hands are indicative that this is manufactured as well. If what her hands are doing are just a little bit behind what she is that she's speaking, there's an indication that this has been prefabricated and put out there, and the nonverbals are kind of catching up to what's happening there. The squinty eye that just happened, there and the shoulder shrugging, and that's it, and then we're out. Yeah,
Okay.
those are all pretty indicative of her being coached, of her being disingenuous, that what she is saying is not
something
the
she actually
spontaneous
believes.
small
Yeah.
t truth in terms of
Right.
what she's putting out there.
Okay. And I mean, my dad was the president and he kept getting himself in big trouble. It would be a real dilemma.
Well, she's put into an impossible situation, but she put herself in that impossible situation as things go.
Right. She's an adult. She made a choice.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, and that's too bad. That's just sad. So, I've outlined the 4 truths. What continues to frustrate me and boggle my mind is our intolerance of all 4 of those positions when it comes to normalizing all the political behavior that's going on. And I won't partisan that out. I mean from both sides. As we become more tolerant of the lying and deception that's happening in the name of campaigning, in the name of truth, in the name of school violence, in the name of sexual harassment.
Are we just being more honest about the lies?
Is that what's going on?
Are we just saying, you
Is
know
our
what?
liometer, our deceptometer?
Let's quit pretending that we don't lie all the time, and everybody who gets up there and makes a State of the Union address or a PR statement or releases a Twitter.
Or a CPAC, my gosh.
Maybe we're just being honest about how much deception we live with.
So, but does being honest about it start to normalize it, and then we walk away and say, but that's all right? When is this not okay?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly the dilemma I have in my personal life. Not that I have major issues above the normal person, I don't think, but in my personal life and in my life as a society member and in my life, as a role as a citizen. That's the dilemma. When is enough is enough? Where do you draw the line? And I saw in my students, there's a big spectrum of where you draw the line. So.
I'm surprised that that's a surprise to you.
Well, okay, here's the thing. I've been taught it's not okay to lie. So.
And so have I. I come from good parents.
So I try really hard not to lie. I mean, I'm not often in a situation where I feel like I need to. So it's not like something I do a lot, I don't think. But maybe I deceive myself. Maybe I willingly deceive myself. And if I willingly...
Self-deception is,
right.
We can spend another
that's
hour on
a lie, right? When we willingly self-deceive. So that's what I'm looking at. So, and I remember an exchange with Chris Stewart, one of our congressional representatives in the House in Congress who's running for re-election. And I was talking to him about Edward Snowden, and Chris was saying, I think he's one of the biggest traitors in American history, and yet he's often portrayed in heroic terms. And because Chris Stewart's on the House Intelligence Committee. And by the way, that other congressman from Florida is on that committee, and he was just saying it is so politicized, it's just not even, it should be disbanded, he said, because we cannot, he said, do anything but have this partisan mistrust of one another.
But you were making a point, just
Okay.
by virtue of Chris Stewart's association with the House Intelligence Committee, that there must be, what? What's the other shoe to drop on that? Well, if he's on the House Intelligence Committee, then ergo he must be
intelligent?
or truthful, or...
Right, and that's the thing, he said to me, I was questioning him on their verdict on Edward Snowden and the report they came out with, and he said to me several times, why would I lie to you? Why would I lie to you? And I'm like, well, I didn't think you were lying to me until you asked me several times, why would I lie to you? That wasn't in the back of my mind that he's lying. I thought he could be misled, maybe by being handled by certain intelligence agencies or certain people. He could be misled, or he could have missed something, but I wasn't thinking he was lying to me. And then he kept asking me, why would I lie?
That's a verbal cue.
Well, I don't like to think my elected leaders are lying to me.
Jen, guess what?
What?
Your elected leaders are lying to you.
Oh, I know it. I'm not saying
Sometimes
but
they're
I'm
doing
saying
that in the best interest of the security of the country, and sometimes they're doing that in the best interest of their own campaign.
Yes.
But we're being lied
or to start a war in Vietnam,
on a
or
regular
heavens,
basis.
or to go into Iraq. Yes.
Iraq was the biggest lie that comes off the heels of 9/11. Yeah, we can talk about that all day long.
What am I supposed to do or think or feel? I don't know. It's a quandary.
We arm ourselves. We get better. We get more critical. Now, I don't mean arm ourselves in terms of guns and
handguns.
things.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm not going to
in terms
ever
of
own a
our
gun,
ability
by
to
the
go
way.
through and critically take a look and see what's going on.
Okay, so back to being aware of when it's happening to us, and then being able to decide what we're going to do about it. You have to spot it first.
You have to be able to identify it. The research indicates that about half of the population has the ability to go through and understand how they're being lied to non-verbally. They see a disconnect happening between the crow's feet and the eyes and what the smile might be doing. Or they hear some tritones or bitones within the vocal range. They don't identify it. They're not able to go through and say, aha. And really very few people can, okay? Without some extensive training, lie detection takes a lot of perspectives to be able to go through and pull it off. There was a show called Lie to Me that came out a couple years ago, and when people understand what it is that I do, they go, oh, are you like that guy on Lie to Me? I said, well, Lie to Me is a Hollywood production, and it doesn't happen that easily. And it takes, you have to baseline the individual, then you have to go through and look at certain types of nonverbal tells that are out there, and it takes one individual per nonverbal department to go through and analyze what's going on. That's why we videotape depositions, is so we can go back and say, what are they doing paralinguistically? What are they doing in proxemics? What are they doing in oculesics? What are they doing in their kinesics? All these things become scrutinized, and it doesn't happen in real time necessarily. It's hard to go through.
Right, it would be. It'd be a lot of information to process.
It's hard. Now, you asked me a question I started with, well, half the population already has this kind of figured out. Guess which half that is?
The females.
Yeah, for the most part.
And kids.
And kids are terrific at that.
Amazing
until
at that.
they start building their own methods of lying. But you know what? Kids are born liars too.
Yes, I'm sure there's an age, and it's pretty young.
No, I mean, it's like really young.
When they can deceive. And I saw that thing where the gorilla lied and blamed the broken sink on the rabbit.
Yeah.
So, whoa.
We've probably taken up way too much time at this point. So maybe this is a conversation we just pick up at Born Liars maybe on our next show, which won't be for
a couple of weeks.
2 weeks, because we have spring break coming up next week, and then you're going on vacation the following week.
Yeah.
How many vacations do you take?
Well, I can't really say now. I don't really want to answer that question. I'm going to deflect it.
So you're not. So you're lying by omission then? Is that what's
I know, I'm just refusing to lie one way or the other.
Because you're like every 3 months you're
whatever
going somewhere as that goes. I see that no one has joined us here, and in terms of our conversation, we've reached 3 people, and that's probably me, you, and Lauren in the studio. But if you want to contribute to this conversation, you have a comment you want to make, you want to call us out on our lies or what we're talking about here, please do so on our Facebook page at facebook.com/TalkingPointLive. And you can obviously you can pick up a rebroadcast of the show, not only on the CEC but also on. And Sean's going to kill me.
Channel 22 broad.
No, on the radio. Is it 90.1?
101.
Sean, if you're listening to me, text me real
Isn't
quick.
Isn't it 99.3?
And see,
91.3. Okay,
but I'm sorry.
Here's the thing, while you're closing down, what if you put that deception acceptance list of questions on our Facebook page? And if we did like a community poll, and people went on there and they scored themselves on those 10 questions of deception acceptance, and then we could look and see where the continuum is in our own community.
If they're willing to go through, and you're talking about doing that publicly on our Facebook page. Yeah,
on our Facebook page, and it's only 10 short questions.
And you want them to post their responses to that?
Well, maybe, I don't know, it would be interesting.
Let me take a look at the questions and let's see.
Right.
And so maybe something for you to go through and look for. We appreciate you joining us here on Talking Point Live. I am Eric Young, and
I'm Jennifer Kohler.
And we'll see you in 2 weeks. We'll be back, okay?